with glasses.
Majority of what?
It sounds like you're gonna have the joy of this soon. Me looking
Oh,
for my lens wipes.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've been meaning to get an eye test for. Oh, God, see, the moment I close my door, the cat will see it.
Hey.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I just feel like my eyesight's just gotten a bit dumpy. From like a medium distance, like when I play Avowed upstairs, and it's on a relatively large TV, but like I chill back on the sofa, I have to set the text to large, and I wish the mini map was bigger. The mini map is fucking teeny tiny. I can't see it. I don't know if there are any
Oh
herbs to
yeah.
collect. I don't know anything. Like it's so hard to see. Obviously,
No
when I'm
wonder you get headaches. You can't see that.
it's tiny, bro. Well, you're telling me when you're chilling back on the sofa playing that in your living room, you don't think that little tiny mini map in the corner is pretty small in terms of the information it offers.
I mean, it's pretty small, but I can see it just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, I guess, but it's not. It's just not ideal. Like when I was sitting here and playing it for like an hour and a half today, like at my desk with my monitors and stuff like that, I was like, oh, I feel so much better. It's great. But yeah, I feel like just sort of like my mid range eyesight's just not great at the moment. Close, I'm fine. Far, probably needs
You're
work too.
fucked.
Yeah, so it's just medium and far. So yeah.
Yeah. So you're short-sighted, like me. Yeah, you'll go and they'll say, yeah, you need glasses.
Yeah, but then why do you wear if you're short sighted, why do you wear glasses right now then? Because I don't have an issue right now at my desk. So why are you wearing them now?
I could take them off and it would be fine. I'm just used to wearing them.
Oh, okay.
Because like if I don't know, like if I wheel back a bit, then I wouldn't be able to see as well. Or if like Beth came in, I wouldn't be able to see her as well. Yeah, but I do take them off in the podcast quite a lot. Like,
I mean,
you know what? I'm gonna do it.
I'm only nice man. I'm only distinguishing like it by like reading and writing. By the way, like I don't find like if I were to like view Tilly from down the hall, she's blurry. Like that's not a thing. It's not that bad. I just mean like I can't really like, yeah, like read or like kind of see. But
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
that's how it starts, man.
I'll be fine.
I noticed
But
it
yeah.
when I was doing my masters, and I realized that I was squinting when I was like far away from the lecture, and I was like, "Hi," and then I started getting really bad headaches, like quite frequently, like at the front of my head, which is what you get when you're short-sighted. So yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
and I've had to get different prescriptions as the years have gone by. How it
Deteriorating.
be? That's how it be. But it's still like I don't have a big subscription. I think I'm like minus. I want to say like 7.5 or something. So
Okay.
that isn't very much. Like if it's zero is neutral. Some people have like really bad like -4. You know they can't see shit. Like they need to wear glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I think mine would be very minor at most, but I do need to get an eye test done. I've been meaning to do one. Just on the weekends, just go into town, get it done. Because they only take like 20 minutes, I think, but I just haven't bothered.
You know, you get some snazzy glasses. Stressful. Okay. I guess we're good to go. I guess.
Yeah. I think everything sounds good. Everything is online and fine. Obviously, if there's anyone in the chat and there's any audio issues, let us know. I can't see the chat, but I don't know if Deck has it up. But
excellent point. Do that right now. Oh no, I clicked on
anything.
Analytics. Oh no. Analytics. Okay. Let's double check. Make sure that's all coming through fine.
It's all 30 frames and working.
Yep, sounding good to me. All right, cool. Let's jingle. Let's go.
Yeah, there you
go. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 158 of the Quick Resume podcast, your place for Xbox and general gaming news. My name is Deck. Tim. Fuck his name. Fuck that guy over there is called Tim.
What happened to not swearing in like the first 10 seconds? Actually, no, we're technically not in the first 10 seconds because we talked about glasses for 2 minutes. So we're fine.
I don't mind swearing in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's not like
here's
we've got
fuck.
any revenue to lose. Yeah. Although I reckon we'll be coming up on it soon. I reckon we'll be coming up on our first payment from our podcast thing. That'll be like a sweet $50. So what, 40 quid?
Yo. That's pretty high.
We'll be coming up on this soon. Yeah.
Put that towards month's answer.
Yeah.
Valorant skins.
Definitely. So, this week, I mean, honestly, I haven't really been tracking much this week. But if you're watching like live, or maybe if you're coming back, like after you've already aired, we decided not to do the show at 6 o'clock as usual because that was exactly to the minute the same time that Avowed came out in early access. So for those that don't know, you can buy, if you have Game Pass, you can buy early access for Avowed, which came out Friday. I think it was like £17 or something. But the full game without early access releases on, when is it? Tuesday? It's probably Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Right.
No. Yes. Yeah.
It's usually Tuesday.
It normally is Tuesday, yeah, and I think it's 5 days. So if it's Thursday, Friday, yeah. I think it's like 6 days.
Yes, that's right. So we figured we'd just push the show back so we have a bit of time to play it. Because I bought early access so that we could play it before Monster Hunter came out, because that's about to change our lives for the better. So figured let's do that. Let's give it some time to at least get a very big chunk of Avowed out of the way, and then we can talk about it on the show. You know, we can talk about our impressions and what we think and everything else, rather than just talking about what everyone else thinks, but not knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think the only other thing that's really happened of note that I'd want to cover this week is the state of play, which I actually haven't seen. I've just like seen like the odd trailer. So I'm glad that you watched it live. Do I know that right?
Yeah, I did watch it live, but God Almighty, I can't remember half the shit in there. Which says a lot about the state of play, if I'm honest. What was the what? Sorry.
What was the sixth thing that was shown?
Oh shit, I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that says a lot about the state of play. Actually, to be fair, I don't know any, like, obviously we'll get onto the topic, but I don't know any rumblings about how it's been received. Because does Jeff do his normal review thing like he does for the Xbox ones as well?
He does.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's been received. I would imagine like no higher than a B, but then I just don't understand that ecosystem sometimes. Maybe people are really hyped about the Days Gone remaster.
Bonkers announcement. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Actually, and the only thing that came of that state of play that I think was really interesting, that maybe I want to talk about, that I haven't added to the notes, that I'm very quickly going to do now, was a article from Eurogamer about PlayStation. Like, given that this has been like the 8th state of play that's been received kind of like with a bit of a wet fart, and they haven't had a showcase in like 2 years, maybe 3 years. And the last showcase they did was really not received very well, especially because it was in contrast to one of the Xbox showcases, which have been quite good. You know, been good at showing games. You know, so yeah, I think there's some. So those will probably be our 3 main topics for today. So before we get into any of that, Tim, how we doing?
Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, really busy week as per from the work side of things. But yeah, it's nice to have a Avowed early release and get my hands on that and play that. Otherwise, we basically just been juggling like Valorant and stuff like that. So the game brain's kind of just been bouncing between a bit of single player and a bit of multiplayer, which I think is always nice. I think it's always nice to have 2 on the go like that, because yeah, as much as I'm having a great time with Avowed, it is still nice to have a multiplayer social game to play as well. Because I don't know if I'm just out of the ordinary here, but I don't particularly love being in parties when I play games like that, like Avowed, where I'm like listening to lots of dialogue and decisions and stuff like that. So yeah,
especially when you've got that one of those like the 1 or 2 friends that just like don't shut the fuck up.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like now's not the time. Now's this is great when we're all playing together right now. Bit of silence.
Yeah,
Respect respect the cutscene, respect the dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously they don't know what's going on in your game as well. So, but
Yeah.
it's fine, and I think it'd probably be fine if I jumped in a buy with you, but then we might get invaded or whatever. But yeah, basically just juggling those two things and having a good time. Yeah.
I know we've like spoken about Valorant a few times on the show now, but like I'm really hooked on Avowed. I'm
Valorant.
really hooked on Valorant. Man, slip of the tongue. Hey, look at that Freudian slip. There we go.
Definitely
That was
knows not
genuine.
paid off here.
Yeah, that was the unconscious slipping in there.
Yeah.
I'm really hooked on Valorant. And
Mm.
I can't quite put my finger on why. I mean, I feel like I've like fallen in love with that game all over again for no reason, really for no reason. Nothing changed. I guess there was a new season with like a new agent or whatever, and that's been quite nice. But it's just the game just still feels fresh as day one, and I think that's just really indicative of a well built multiplayer game. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we ever really dropped off because of we just didn't like it got stale or we just didn't enjoy it anymore. I just think like just life gets in the way, and I think we also Marvel Rivals we played for a little bit with the hype of that, and that was quite fun because I think we had our friend group was a lot more receptive to Marvel Rivals than they were Valorant. So it was very easy for us to get a 4 or 5 man squad and play Marvel Rivals, where if we're playing Valorant, it was only me and Deck normally. Um, so, but yeah, obviously now that Marvel Rivals honeymoon phase is kind of gone. I still really like the game, and I'll probably go back to it. But like that honeymoon phase is gone for us, and I think we've just gone back to Valorant, which is just a better game and just clicks with us a lot more, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm exactly the same as you. Like I'm pretty hooked on it. It's just something so satisfying about it, just constantly sort of getting better and trying new characters as well. Like I like to shake it up and play a few different characters, so I'm not just doing the same thing over and over. Yeah, I mean by that I mean like I have my staples I like in the roles, and I just depending on who's being picked is that role I go with. But like if I'm playing controller, I will always go clove. But I might not always play controller, is what I mean, sort of thing. Yeah.
For sure. I think there's I mean, at first, I don't know. I think we said this like months ago when it first came out in early access, whatever, and then it went, live, open for everyone. But like, it's such a good console port as well. Like, it just feels really good, and you're right. It's one of those games where you can really feel your progress. Like the fact that I'm like teetering on plat one, like you should be too, but the RP is fucked you up. But I would say as a duo, we're teetering on plat is like wicked because like when we first played, like we were in silver, like you know struggling.
Yeah.
And I know we'd be making our lives easier if we went in like game chat as well and things like that. But there's just like this extra level of stress that I often don't want to deal with. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to be told to kill myself and things like that. So
Or whatever reason, everyone's French as well. I don't know why.
everyone is French in our
So it's
servers.
pointless anyway.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. You just get the occasional English word come through, and then if you're winning, it's like GG, GG.
Mhm.
And then all you can make out is the name of your agent, like every now and again.
Yeah, that's literally it. Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's talking to me. He's talking to me.
Yeah. He's giving me advice. Yeah.
But and I've said this before. I think one of the things that I really like about Valorant is that it's a really nice balance between like gunplay and strategy. Um, and I don't think that's apparent at first. Maybe it
Mhm.
is. I don't know, but I think that only but really starts to reveal itself the more that you play. Like I think, and I've spoken about this before, where something like Apex is on one end of the continuum. But I guess something like Call of Duty would be like, the complete end of
It's
the
just
continuum,
all
where it's just like all
gunplay.
gunplay.
Yeah.
It's just all gunplay. It's just you just got to click and that's it. Then you've got something like on the other end of the continuum is like Overwatch, like not fully, but near there, where it's like it's mostly abilities. Like it's
Mhm.
timing abilities, it's cooldown rotations, it's positioning, and
Oh,
then there is gun
rotation.
skill in
Yeah.
there. Oh, rotation, yeah, and there's T play, and there's all of that. So there's all of this other like T play going on. But there is some, especially some characters as well do require some gun skill as well. Apex is somewhere on the other end near COD where like there are skills, but like they don't nearly have as much
It's
influence as
like
your
a
ability to craft.
70-30 split, yeah.
Exactly. Whereas Valorant feels like it's right in the middle there somewhere, where your
Mm,
abilities generally aren't getting you kills, but like they're so important in like creating space and helping rotations and getting spike and things like that.
mm,
That that just feels really good. Like and there's also an economy element to it as well. So I really like that about the game, that it finds that nice middle ground. I think that's what helps keep it fresh, because it feels really rewarding to use a piece of utility really well beyond just clicking on a head. So there's
mm.
there's almost different vectors of improvement going on at once, and I really like that. So yeah, big
Yeah.
props to Valorant. I'm just I think that's it's a really great game.
Yeah, yeah. It's just super satisfying. Just everything about it. Like something as boring and as simple as like a smoke just
Mhm.
can get you amped. Like fucking nice smoke, man. That
Nice
one,
smoke,
yeah,
dude. Yeah.
that want us to fucking round that smoke. Never thought I'd ever say something like that. Never thought I'd be buzzed just putting a little circle
Yeah.
down. So,
Yeah.
so
And on on the other side of it, it's like, what the fuck is that smoke? Like, why have you put that there? What is that? It's so useless. It's
yeah.
useless smoke.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's super good, and I think the agent variety is just super good as well. Like I feel like you can really just, if you were ever getting bored and you didn't want to play Teo, for example, for anymore, you could just be like, I'm just really gonna fucking shake it up and play someone like Neon, and it would just feel like a completely new game. Like that whole play style would just turn the game on its head. So yeah, it's got a lot of legs in it, Valorant. I think we're probably close to putting like what, maybe like 10 days game time into it now, I'd say. I think we kind of
God, I haven't
dropped
even
it
thought about
around
that.
like the 7
Yeah.
day mark, I think. And then we've been playing it so much again recently. I'd probably say we're approaching like 10 days, something like that. Close to that. So yeah, and it feels just as fresh. So yeah, it's definitely probably one of my favorite um competitive multiplayer shooters ever, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. It's up there. It's up there. Awesome. Yeah, just wanted to give quick props
Mm-hmm.
to Valorant. It's really good time that we're hooked back into it now. And we'll see how that goes really as Monster Hunter comes out in the next 2 weeks. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about when that happens. But it's
Mm.
they fill different holes, but like I know I'm gonna be really loving
Monster Hunter
Monster
is
Hunter. Like
time consuming though. Like it like
exactly, yeah, you can do
hunts are
both.
like 30-40 minutes, sometimes, especially when you're, around the same sort of level as it. And
Yeah,
you're round robin quests, you're not even doing stuff you want to do because you're with your duo and stuff, and it just you can sink hours into that. So yeah, we won't have time for Valorant.
no. It'll probably be a nice time for a bit of a break because the season will be coming to an end. We finished the battle pass, and then
Yeah,
we can just really
yeah.
sink our teeth into that. So that's super exciting. Um, yeah, I don't think I've been playing anything else. I can't remember if I spoke about. Did I speak about finishing Nine Souls? I guess I didn't. Well,
Mm-mm.
I didn't finish it actually. That was the thing. So I was really loving Nine Souls. I think I did mention it on the show. Like I had heard a lot of good things about it, but I really knew nothing about it. Like I saw the cover. I knew it was like a 2D kind of Metroidvania sort of deal. Um, and I was loving it. Like really good. It's like Sekiro inspired. I knew that as well, and I just knew the cover art was like a cat. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know why it's called Nine Souls. Anyway, it turns out it's like this really sick, like cyberpunk meets Taoism story, like like Chinese mythology, not Chinese mythology, like Chinese culture slash cyberpunk. Like, and it's like a sci-fi story. It's a sci-fi game, which is like fucking nuts because like
Yeah, it's
I just
weird.
would not have thought that.
Yeah.
And it's a good one. Like it's like the world and the lore and the background is all really interesting. Um, as I got further into it, I didn't lose steam. I was always motivated to play, but like some warts became apparent in a way which started to detract from the experience. And I suppose I just wanted to talk about it really for anybody who's maybe considering playing Nine Souls because it's on Game Pass, and I would absolutely recommend it. Like despite what I'm about to say. So the game gets way too excited with giving you 2-stage and 3-stage boss fights. Fuck off. Like, you do not need to be doing this every single time. Like, it's getting actually a bit annoying and
Isn't that
frustrating.
just
Like, it used
what
to...
Elden Ring did though? Where like
No, I didn't
80%
think
of
so.
bosses multi-stage boss fights.
No, I didn't think so. That was never an issue for me in Elden Ring. I don't remember that being an issue. I know there were some, and I think that's fun. I think it's fun when you beat your boss and you're like, woohoo, and then it fucking comes back to life, you know, in the second stage. And like that is fun when that happens every now and again, or sometimes it's even predictable, like in a good way. Sometimes the boss is like telegraphed, um, you know, based on its design that it's going to come back and you're gonna have to
Yeah.
properly kill it, you know.
Yeah.
That was never the case with any of these bosses. It was just like, oh, the back for some like, and it was for every single main boss. I'm pretty sure every single one there was always 2 stages. One of them was 3 stages, and it just actually got a bit annoying. It's just fatiguing. Like, it's like, let me get my win here. I don't need it. Like yeah. I find that really frustrating, and I think probably other people playing the game would probably feel the same way as well. But I don't know. And I can remember Sekiro did this as well. Sekiro had, and it wasn't as bad as this, but it was like half the bosses in the game were like another stage, and it's just like I did 10 minutes ago, I beat a 2 stage boss. I don't need this one now resing themselves to do it again. Like it's fucking irritating, especially when it's a really hard boss and you've like put blood, sweat, and tears into the first stage, and it's like, so now I have to go through this process repeatedly. At some point, it just becomes a matter of a time sink,
It just becomes
and like just getting the muscle.
doesn't it?
And yeah, and it's just like, I know I have to do. I just have to keep doing it until my muscle memory kicks in, and I have to get through the first stage to get to that stage for my muscle memory to kick in, and that's annoying. Like, I feel like they could have better split that up. Like maybe where some more of them had 3 stages instead of 2, but you checkpointed after each stage, or something like that. You know, I just feel like some variety in that would have been nice. And anyway, so I got to the end of the game, and like a lot of the world building is really cool. And I was hoping to finish it before Avowed came out, but I couldn't do it. Like I got to the last boss like the night before Avowed came out, and the last boss is like, oh my god,
Skill check
fucking hell. Like
central.
I wasn't even getting close. You know, like when you start a boss and you're not even getting like a bit of their health bar down, and you're like, fucking hell, this is gonna take a while.
Yeah.
That's what, and that's a 2 stage boss. Yeah. So I was just like, fuck this, I'll accept defeat. I got loads of the lore, like exposition and dialogue out the way to like understand what happened with the story, and it was fun. Like it was a really good time. My only other two complaints, like the big warts, were the navigation in the game kind of sucks at times. Like sometimes you'll finish a boss and then you'll be like, where do I go? And the game just doesn't tell you. The game's just like, figure out. And I was on Google a couple of times because I was like, this is silly. I'm not going to spend all this time just wandering the map finding what to do. And the other thing is the writing of the main character, who Yi, is his name Yi? I think it's Yi. Is like really weird. Like his characterization of his, and I don't know if it's like a translation. Like I don't know if the game was written in a different language. I don't know, but his characterization is so different to how he is written. Like the way he like moves on screen and the way you see him pop up in cutscenes is so like he's just very like he's a the whole point of his character is that he's like a stoic scientist. He believes in science, and that's the way forward. Whereas, like a lot of the other themes of the game is like feeling and art and intuition versus like kind of science, and that was and mysticism as well. And that's like a really cool theme that the game explores in the context of the story. But the way he speaks and his speech bubble come up, like he speaks like he's a 13-year-old. I'm like, it's so really jarring every time. I'm like, I don't feel like he would say that. Like,
okay.
So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a couple of times because it just was a bit. It didn't really make sense to my mind. Overall, I'd give the game like an 8. It was a really good time. I was going to give it an 8.5, but I think all of those things by the end of the game dragged me down a little bit to an 8. But it was such a pleasant surprise because I knew nothing about it. And I can definitely see why some people had it in their game of the year list last year. Really good time. Would really recommend it.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll just move on to Avowed, really. So, for those that don't know, Avowed is Obsidian's next big release. Obsidian is the studio who, back in the day, made Knights of the Old Republic, Fallout New Vegas, the South Park game, South Park Stick of Truth. Not the new one though. Not the new one that was like really bad that
Dog
everyone
shit.
liked.
Yeah, yeah.
Was
It's a
it
good
called like
one.
Snow Day or something? Yeah, not that one. They didn't do that one. And most recently, they did Grounded and Pentiment. Grounded is getting a spin off TV show. Pentiment was a bit of a cult hit, critically very well received. Both have now been ported over to PlayStation or Switch, so you can play them anywhere. Would highly recommend. Obsidian has this like long history, for those who don't
They also
know.
did the Outwards.
Outwards as well, thank you. And that was in 2018. Obsidian has this long history of being the studio that's really good, but have always had a lot of internal turmoil because of like budget restraints. Hence why they were a really good candidate for Xbox to acquire them back in 2018. So we've known a lot about Avowed for a while now. It was revealed in 2020, and it's been a turbulent ride, man, hasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Since its initial reveal. For a number of reasons that I'm not sure I was fully on board with, but I guess I can see the perspective. I mean, I wonder how you feel about that, Tim. Like since like how the game has been since its initial reveal in 2020 with that original reveal.
Oh, well, we kind of talked about that in the last podcast, didn't we? How it's been sort of received from how it started and where it's ended just before its release.
Mhm.
And I think we both agreed we had the same sort of sentiment where it started kind of strong with that trailer and people were very intrigued. Then it kind of went downhill when people figured out it wasn't quite the dark, gritty fantasy people wanted it to be, and it was maybe a slightly smaller scale than something like Skyrim or whatever, and not quite AAA. And then with the previews and the good word leading up to it, I feel like it just hit a nice positive stride right before it released. I think in the last sort of 6 months. I think we had quite a similar sort of agreement there on its journey generally. Yeah.
Definitely, and I guess like because I want to bleed this into like our kind of impressions. So one of the when the, I think the game was it we got the first bit of gameplay look was that 2022? I feel like it was 2022 or maybe it's 23. Was it the same year as Hi-Fi Rush? I feel like it was the same year as Hi-Fi
Well,
Rush.
there was some gameplay in some of the trailers and stuff like that, and I feel like that came earlier than 2022. Like we saw some actual gameplay
No, it
snippets and
definitely
trailers.
wasn't.
No?
No, it definitely
Okay.
wasn't earlier than
God,
2022. I don't
we've
think.
really had like 3 years of silence then. When was it teased?
That's what. Yeah,
That's
fucking hell. Let me just
crazy.
go on YouTube actually. Developer Directs. It always show one of them. Was the first? The first one was in 2020. The first one was 22, wasn't it? Developer. So maybe let's check. Developer Direct 2022. No, 2022 was Redfall. Oh no, 2 years ago.
We don't talk about that. Don't say it.
maybe it was. Maybe it was last year. Am I losing my mind? Maybe it was 2024. Developer Direct. That's what's coming up here. Developer 2024 was Avowed. So yeah, it was. It was revealed in 2020, and then we didn't hear anything for 4 years.
Okay. Neat. Get off.
No, that's not right. There was
Yeah.
there was a trailer at the showcase. That's what I'm missing.
Yeah, that's what I
There
was
was
trying to
like
say.
a bit.
There
There
was
was a bit of
something.
a trailer, but it didn't. It showed snippets of gameplay, but then we got the first gameplay like walkthrough in Developer Direct 2024.
Yeah.
I've got it now, but it was still 3 years of silence. Like we saw the first bit of gameplay, 2023. And I remember like a lot of the commentary then was kind of like, first person combat is shit.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. It's never good. And then people would always like draw the Skyrim comparison, but like, combat in Skyrim was shit. Which, by the way, as a side note, I think that's like a really weird. I've spoken about this on the show before. I think that's a really weird criticism because Skyrim was not about deep combat, and that was obvious. Like, it was about accessibility and flexibility and role playing. Like, that's the reason they could have chosen a more in-depth combat system, but it was like, no, it's like an immersive system where the triggers are your fucking weapons, and you can put whatever you want in there, and you can kind of be flexible with that. Like, I don't know. I feel like the way that like criticism of combat has evolved over the years is really weird. It's like I need button combos or it's like bad, and it's like I just don't agree with that.
Yeah.
So we've come to launch day. Game has come out in early access. We've probably played. I don't know. I've probably played like maybe 6 hours now, maybe 7 hours.
I'm approaching 6. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose, how has this panned out in line with our expectations, in line with like this long wait we've had? How has that panned out for us? So I'll just start with you, Tim. Like, I just want to hear kind of your impressions. Like, given that this has been quite a long wait for Avowed, it's been something that initially we were. It's been I think the expectations around what the game is has changed over the years,
Mm.
and now it's we got delayed a few times and then slotted nicely into kind of this February release on Game Pass. So yeah, I just kind of want to hear like what you think about all of that and what your thoughts are on the game so far.
Um, yeah, I think I always had a decent grip on what Avowed was going to be when it was first released. I mean, sure, I did get slightly bamboozled in the sense I thought it would be a bit more gritty or whatever, but then when it was revealed that it wasn't, and it was a bit more colorful and it was a bit more, all that sort of stuff, I was definitely not like upset by that. Like, I actually thought that actually helped it sort of stand out and be a bit different a little bit. So I feel like I always had a good understanding of the scope of it. Obsidian, the size of the studio, the kind of games they generally make. I played Outer Worlds and I enjoyed that too. So I think with my hands on it now and what I played, I think it's around what I've expected, or even I would say it's exceeded my expectations a little bit. I Every time I boot this game up, I'm having more and more fun with it. Um, so I think we spoke last night, and I was just like, yeah, it's good. I can see like why it's not fantastic and stuff like that. But I'd even say since I played a few more hours of it today, I would bump up the score higher than what I gave it yesterday. Whether or not that holds throughout the entire playthrough, I don't know. But being 6 hours in, I'd probably be I'd probably give this game like an 8.5 right now. Like, maybe approaching a 9. Like, it just puts a smile on my face, dude. Like, I'm just having so much fun with it. Um I think it does such a good job at blending everything from from story, side quest, dialogue, good voice acting, to exploration, to good combat. I feel like it just blends all that so well. Like, I spent like 2 hours just jumping around fucking buildings and stuff like that today, and I found such good loot. And then I stumbled into some like weird cellar dungeon that was filled with poltergeists, and then I just killed like a whole bunch of poltergeists, and then read a note on some sort of curse that was there or whatever, and then found a totem, and I was like, cool, totems are great. This is awesome. And I opened the door and I left. This was in the middle of the town. This was just a cellar in the middle of the town. I wasn't out in the wilderness or anything like that. Um, and yeah, it's just super good, man. I just feel like so far I've just done so many side quests, and you know me, I'm not a huge side quest guy. I love the side quests so far. I think they're really good. They reward you really well. Some are really short and snappy. Some, like the same one we did, have like branching paths and different choices that might affect you later or whatever and stuff like that. We made different choices. Um, Annoyingly, weirdly, the loot wasn't different, but I think it might affect the game later. But yeah, all of that, and just how, yeah, like, I'm just having such a good time with it, man. This is what I wanted. I wanted Starfield to give me this feeling, and Starfield didn't even come close to giving me this feeling. Starfield was like a 6, 7 out of 10 for me at best. And I know, like, I generally prefer the high fantasy setting, so I think that helps. I'm a little bit biased in that sense, but I just think that everything about this game is just more fun. Um, like, the exploration in Starfield was garbage compared to this, like actual garbage. If I were to put them side by side, one's a steaming pile of garbage and one's Avowed, like, genuinely. So yeah, that's kind
I,
of
I,
how I
I think
think
it's
about it.
I do think it's an interesting comparison, and I think Avowed does a really good job of being quite frictionless. Like, you can pick up the controller and just play it, and you will
Yeah.
stumble into something. You will find, you will level up. You will something will happen. You'll go to a side quest. You'll see something in the distance. Like, you will be able to accomplish something,
Mm.
or like just engage with the smooth gameplay in a way that, like, you put the controller down. You're like, I felt good about that. I don't
Yeah.
think Starfield had that.
No.
I don't agree that Starfield's exploration wasn't good. I liked Starfield's exploration quite a lot, it just depends what you want out of it. I liked going to like some of these procedurally generated players and just wandering around. I don't think the itemization was always great. It was kind of inconsistent. Um, but I did like going to different planets, seeing what was there, seeing what was going on. I did like what they're offered, but it wasn't frictionless. Like it had friction in it, like in the way that Avowed is you kind of had to push yourself to get going because you had to get through those loading screens and then you usually had to travel to the place you wanted to go. But
And there was no
it
fucking map.
required there's no map, yeah, right. It required
Pissed
quite
me
a
off
lot of
so
stopping and
much.
smelling. It required quite a lot of stopping and smelling the roses Starfield to really enjoy that. And if that's I think if that sort of friction is something that you struggle with, I can definitely see why that would be really unenjoyable for you. Whereas Avowed, I don't think that is that.
Mm.
These are like tight worlds, and I think Jeff Grubb said something really good on his Twitter the other day. He said like Avowed feels like it was made by real people making real games.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really high on it. They're really high on it over there on Giant Bomb and his podcast. Um, but you know, that's something that obviously Starfield was missing with it being procedurally generated. And like I said, I quite like that in the context of it being you're exploring a galaxy, but I can definitely see why that wasn't for everyone and why that
Mm.
dragged down the exploration experience. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think it was like amazing, like when I'm talking about Starfield, but I did like it. Like I did like being able to do that. I thought that was something I didn't really get to do in other games. Um,
Mm.
but as I say, picking up the controller and just picking up where you left off on Avowed is like so smooth and easy to do. Um, and that I agree with you. I think that's really fun. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So I mean, it's sounding pretty positive. I think you're probably on a little bit higher on it than I am. Nonetheless, I'm still having a great time. I think where I'm at is that this feels great, not excellent, but it feels great. Um, it remains to be seen how these things will like pan out, as you say, over the course of the game. Um, but let's think about what I like. Talking about like kind of the expectations of the game and what we thought the game was going to be like. I knew from the first gameplay reveal that this was going to have good combat, and I
Mm.
was always really confused, like the hyper fixation on like enemies aren't reacting. Um, they were like I never really got that. Like, don't get me wrong, they spruced it up like in the polishing phase. Like, it definitely is better. Like, enemies ragdoll
Mm.
around now. Like there's proper physics there, which is don't get me wrong, a big improvement from when we first saw it 2 years ago for the gameplay. Um, but even like back on the trailers, like you'd swipe left and the enemies would get not left, you'd swipe right, and you can go and watch
Mm.
that. And I knew any extra bits of like fluff they did was going to be added in the meantime. But I could just tell by the systems they had in place with the combat. There's a dodge, there's a slide, you can free jump whenever you want, you can change weapon sets, you can use your left hand independent to your right hand. There's channeling spells, there's heavy attacks and power attacks, and then there's like a stamina bar that you can deplete and then do like a sort of finishing move. I could tell that there were just all these systems in place that are clearly designed to make it engaging from
The
moment to
companions as
moment.
well.
Yeah, exactly. So if we are going to go back to this, yeah, companions. So if we are going to go back to the Skyrim and Avowed comparison, which again I think is stupid, but if we are going to do that, like even from that initial reveal trailer, you could see there were like 5 or 6 extra systems on top of whatever
Mm-hmm.
Skyrim was doing. So I think they've done a really good job in making first person like spell casting and combat feel really fun and engaging and fast and snappy.
Mm-hmm.
It remains to be seen how that will play out over the course of the game. But right now, it feels really good. Like it feels fun. And I think Tim, are you playing this game mostly in first person?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I think it's a fucking sin if anybody's playing this game mostly in third person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's got to be first person, especially as it feels so good as well. Like the combat, like the animations on just how you swing your weapon and stuff like that. It's not just like a like this, you can see like your elbow like proper like cocked and it's
Yeah.
got like a nice punch to it and stuff like that. And the spells are just so cool first person. And also the um like the mantling and parkour is just fucking sick in this game. Like, it feels
Feels good.
really good. Like
Yep.
um and like when you look at any other game that's done this, Starfield included, obviously Skyrim way back when, Outer Worlds and all that, whenever you're jumping around or just walking around in these places, everything just felt so fucking jank all the time. And I feel like this is the first game that's actually nailed it to the point where everything actually just moving around on the map just feels quite fluid and quite nice.
Yeah. it's fun to just move around in this game. Like it's fun to just move
Yeah.
around and explore, and because it's quite dense, like you tend to just stumble on stuff, and I think that's
Hmm.
quite good. Like 9 times out of 10, if you have a look at that thing that looks kind of weird, you're gonna find something. And
Yep.
I guess that maybe moves us on to like the next part, which is like exploration, right? Um, which I think again, combat and exploration, I think to my eyes are the two things which seem to be pretty unanimously praised across the board. Like, don't
Hmm.
get me wrong, I can't speak for everyone, but across the reviews, most people are like, yeah, these two things in this game are really good. Um, and I'm largely agreed with that. I think it's nice playing one of these RPGs, first person when you can just see the thing in the distance with your own eyes. Like you don't have to look at an exclamation mark or whatever and just go to it
Hmm.
and do the thing. And there's things within that. There's little puzzles. I came across this place with axes swinging out the wall, and then I had to shoot, but there was a door on the other side that I couldn't get to. And then I had to go back through the axes, and there was a crack in the wall, and I had to shoot the fire thing so it could fall down because I couldn't
Hmm.
fit a spell through there. So I had to shoot the thing. Like I think I could have only done it with a gun or a bow, which is what I'm rocking. So I don't know how other classes would have, or other loadouts would have worked there. And then I fell down and blew up the door, and then I could go through the axes and through again, and ended up finding a unique. Stuff like that will happen all the time in Avowed, and that is
Yeah.
just delightful. And then there's other layers to that. There's maps. Have you come across any of the treasure maps yet?
I have found a treasure map. Yeah. Yeah. Literally like maybe
Love a
20
treasure map.
minutes before I
Yeah.
came on here. Yeah, it's hype. Like I can't wait to just actually find that area. I love it when games do stuff like that. They just give you like a piece of scenery, circle it red, and you're like, I think I remember seeing that, or like it stays in your brain. So when you do come across it, you're like, hang on a second, and then yeah, you go and yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
And I think that's like such a benefit to the first person RPG genre, that it's just like use your eyes.
Hmm.
Don't spend all your time going through quests, collecting quests so that we take you to places. Use your fucking eyes.
I didn't
Yeah,
even know there was a
have a look
map
around.
for the first like 3 hours of the game. Like I genuinely didn't know I
Oh,
could
did you
press
not?
back and go over to a map. Like I just navigated everything just organically, like genuinely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think about it at its best when you're doing that. Um, like, because there are times where I'm finding myself like going into the map and like just trying to clear the fog of war. Um, and thankfully they make the game again really frictionless and allowing you to do that. So it's like, like I've already explored the left hand side of the map, but there's this pocket up there and I really want to go see what's up there, so I'll just like fast travel over there.
Hmm.
And the game's like, yeah, no big deal, just fast travel over there.
Yeah.
They really don't mind you doing that.
Hmm.
um I suppose the only hiccup here that I think some people will get hung up on is that like 80 or 90% of the chests that you come across in the process of exploration is crafting materials and upgrade materials.
Mm.
um maybe food as well. Um,
Yeah.
that hasn't bothered me so much, because the game lets you know pretty early on and like quite viscerally, you need these.
Yeah. How
Like when you
important
start
they
coming
are.
up against,
Yeah.
yeah, when you start coming up against the next tier of enemies, and you're like, oh fuck, this is actually really hard. Um, then you'll be thankful you did all that exploring, and actually that will push you to keep exploring. So there's quite a nice feedback loop there. But I do understand that for some people, they're going to be like, great, more branches and pelt, sick, and a bit of money.
Mm.
You know, I suppose it's tuned in well enough for what the game is, but it's not so expansive in the same way that something like Elden Ring was, where you'd be finding like a new fucking spell or a new weapon like every when you did this sort of exploration. Like it's just
Yeah.
different goals, and I think this so far feels executed quite well. But it is, if somebody's coming into this expecting an Elden Ring level of content, I think they're going to get disappointed with that.
Yeah, you're not going to find a new build in every single chest. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. I think this is the first game in a while that I'm not that upset where I'm just finding crafting materials because I know how much they're needed and the fact that I know I'm constantly improving when I use these crafting materials. But I mean, I've found a pretty healthy amount of these like uniques and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I don't really feel like it's been that much of an issue. I don't think there's like a loot drought or anything like that. I think it's pretty well balanced so far. It hasn't really annoyed me. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that feels pretty well balanced. Like, there's just enough uniques out in the world, and by uniques we mean like gear, that has a unique
That's like a
attribute
magical
or a
effect on it.
skill
Yeah.
or a magical effect, and you can get unique everything. You can get unique rings, amulets, legs,
Boots, gloves.
yeah, boots, gloves, and weapons, across the board, and they tend to be quite like exciting, and fun.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that is really nice. I think that's something while we're doing the comparison is something that Starfield was generally quite bad at, like the itemization of
Yeah.
Starfield because it was
It's
all random. It was all
ass.
randomly generated. So like you get the occasional like legendary, and you'd be like, oh, that's quite cool. But generally, it was never like that exciting, and that was quite rare. However, like all of these uniques I'm coming across, I'm like, that would be cool to work into a build. Like I actually just found I killed an ogre, and in the encampment there was a legendary two-handed axe, and um it was like every time you get a kill, movement speed increased by 15% for 10 seconds. And obviously you can upgrade uniques as well.
Hmm.
You can upgrade the magical attribute, and the upgrade of that one was it goes to 30% for 10 seconds. I was like, that would be so cool for like a berserker build, you know,
Hmm.
like slash someone down, like sprint over to the next one and some max speed, slide over to them, smash their knees
Combine it
in,
with like a
and then
shield, like a bash, because you don't have like a shoulder
a
bash
bash.
in this game too. Yeah.
Like you could be really quick moving from enemy to enemy. So and I think you get a lot of things like that. Like that, we've got on a flaming sword, haven't we? We've got on like a
Yeah.
frosty axe. I don't know if you've got that yet.
No, I haven't. No.
There's the flaming dagger is quite cool as well, which is like it procs on the full combo rather than a charged attack. And there's loads of cool effects on the armors as well. Like one of them I got earlier, which was like if I lose 30% of my max health in one go, I just use the barbarian raw, like one of the skills. Like I just use that,
Oh,
even though I
okay.
don't haven't spec'd into it.
That's cool.
Um, which I think is like increases health and maybe gives damage or something. I can't remember the thing
Yeah. Yeah.
like stuns everyone or something like that. Um, so yeah, I think that there's just enough of them that you will be incentivized to like look around every corner. Like, oh, what if there's like a unique? I'm using a bow, and what if there's a unique bow there? And that would be so sick to get. And like that's really exemplified by me exploring the docks like earlier today, and I was going through this already hidden area, by the way, and I explored it, and I was like, I wonder if there's anything missing there. And we haven't actually described it so far, but there's like a tingling. There's
Yeah.
like a shimmer, isn't there? Like a
I've
shimmering
heard it.
noise,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is great because every time you hear that shit, you're like, your ears prick up, like a
Yeah. Where?
meerkat, and you're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and lo and behold, there was like a big legendary box. You can tell if they're legendary because of the glow of the box. And I was like, it was in this room. Like I was already underground. I was like, how the fuck do I get to that? So I was like looking around. I was like, I can't see. And then eventually I got this really like tight angle on it. There was an explosive barrel on the other side, which which I had to shoot. Um, but it was just like I saw that and I was like, ooh, like I need to get there. Like it always,
Yeah.
they're always it's tuned well enough that it's always exciting and will keep you wanting to explore every corner. I suppose that's the short of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's probably one of the best parts about the game. And I feel like it just they kind of know that and it just ties in really well with how fluid the combat works as well and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like engagements don't feel taxing. Like you can be done with camper lizards in 5 fucking seconds. You just blow them up with a massive fireball or something like that. It can feel quite fluid in your exploration. It's not just like, oh god, I've come across this. It's 10 minutes of blocking and slashing or something like that. So um yeah, no, I just feel like everything is fine tuned quite well here. And I like the addition of the like companions and stuff like that. It kind of gives me almost Guardians of the Galaxy kind of vibes, where you can just press a button and have them go do something and like take aggro or something like that. Or yeah, it's quite nice. I mean, I've actually recently got another companion outside of Kai as well.
You got
And
Marius, yeah.
yeah, and he can like brute people and stuff like that now, which is so useful.
Mm.
He also has something which I haven't used it yet, but I'm not too sure how that's going to work in terms of the exploration. He can like do like a
The
sense.
treasure scan
Yeah,
thing.
I haven't used it
It's good.
yet, but I hope it doesn't just trivialize the whole. You just
The
press a
range is quite
button.
short.
Okay, good. I was hoping it wasn't just like a fucking you press it and you just see everything through a wall and then you're like,
No, it's
yeah,
basically if you can hear the shimmer, use it, and it will show you where it is. But if you're outside of the shimmer range, it's not just going to highlight it for you.
Okay, I was hoping it just wasn't an easy mode button, because I do quite enjoy that part of the game. So, um, but yeah, no, super good. And I've heard people bash on the writing a little bit, but so far I haven't had an issue with that. I don't know if that just will be fatigued as I go through the game, or it just gets worse, or I don't know. But so far, I think it's pretty good, like side quests and main quests all included. I haven't had an
Yeah.
issue with anything feeling cheesy or anything feeling like particularly bad so far. I don't know about you, but so I've heard
No,
quite
no,
a few people complain about this.
I'm not really understanding where those complaints are coming from at the moment.
Mm,
This feels like well written. There's nothing which has stood out as bad. And in actual fact, I would say generally it feels quite good.
yeah.
It's funny, you know. Usually, it's you know one of the few studios who do writing where like I'm regularly chuckling because their comic relief is so good. And obviously, Avowed isn't a funny game in the same way like The Outer Wilds is, where that's like thematically it's a comedy, you know. Whereas Avowed just has comic relief, but its comic relief is really good, and the voice actors are often doing a really good job in delivering. Um, they'll make you chuckle every now and again, and there's things happening in the world which can be really funny as well.
Mm,
Um, but I so maybe this is a good time to just pivot into like writing on the world in general, because obviously this Avowed being a game from the Pillars of Eternity universe, a game which I tried to play Pillars of Eternity 1 remastered a while back, and like I really liked everything about the world and what the game was putting out, but like that classic RPG, like the CRPG, oh man, I just couldn't get into it. I so tried, but it was just it's
mm.
so it just does not give a fuck about you. It's like, here's a
No
book, read the
breadcrumbs.
book, find the clue, figure it out, dickhead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if like you put the game down and then pick it back up, good fucking luck remembering where you were up to. Like you've got to dedicate your life to it. You've got to have a notebook going at the same time. I've heard that the second one is a bit better. Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire. Um, a bit better at kind of streamlining that and making it more accessible. So maybe one day. But I watched some primer videos before the game came out. I watched Obsidian did a series of videos, and I read a bit on the wiki, and I listened to like a Pillars of Eternity like recap from some YouTuber. I can't remember who it was actually. And that was really nice because it helped me like just understand like the major events of each of the games. So it put me in pretty good stead to like understand what people are talking about most of the time. And I was
Mm,
saying to you earlier, Tim, like I really, even without that, I really like the mythology of this universe of Aora. I like that, like it's just reincarnation is just like central to the game. It's
mm,
just like this reincarnation. The belief is that souls go into the wheel and then they get churned back out, and your souls get put into like new bodies when people get born again.
mm,
And so there, there's implications for that. You know what that means. There's even like we had that quest early on, quite early on. The game introduces you to the idea that that's not like perfect. Like that's not like so. It's even up for debate if that's like a natural system or if that's like artificial.
mm,
Because souls can get split and go into different people. And earlier on there was like a soul that seemed to have been split between one of the lizard people, the Zorobs, and this woman.
mm,
Um, and it almost has like alternate history kind of vibes at sometimes. Almost like instead of like in the 1600s, 1500s, whatever, instead of moving into like the medieval period that we did and then moving through, beyond that into the industrial revolution, they just studied souls and they speak about animancy and like studying souls and the nature of souls. And like
mm,
instead of like studying science, they're just like, now we need to figure out what's going on with souls. And that's like one of the core things of the game. And I think that's like it gives it this cool flavor that isn't quite like another fantasy RPG that I've played.
mm.
Yeah. What do you think about the kind of how, because as someone who hasn't really done any of the primer stuff, which I don't think you need to play this game, but what do you think about the world, and the world building and everything?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I like the whole spiritual side of things, rather than it just being like, like tech or science or something like that. Yeah, like you said, just like the more spiritual side of things. I think it's pretty cool. It's quite unique and different. And I enjoy that. I do feel like a good chunk of it is flying over my head though. Like I don't know too much about this sort of stuff, and people are saying like keywords that are like even lit up in green in the text, and I'm still just like, I okay,
Are you
I don't
going in the
know,
encyclopedia?
huh?
Are you going in the encyclopedia, like the
I mean,
glossary?
sometimes, but like, I don't want to spend my game time reading paragraphs and paragraphs of text.
There's not that much. They're quite like short for that reason.
Okay, I have done it a couple times, but like generally, no, probably not. And yeah, through maybe a little bit of my own fault, it some of it is flying over my own head. Which is fine because I know I'm picking it up into a universe that I've never explored before and stuff like that. So I'm
Yeah.
fully aware that's going to happen. I don't think it's bad game design or anything like that. Like I could just spend a little bit of time and figure it out. Because at the same time, if they spoon fed it, as if I was, you know, brand new anyway, and they explained everything every time they brought up like this god's name, they give me the entire like history of that god and what he's done and who he is and stuff like that. I'd be like, okay, this is a bit like I
It's
don't
just a single
yeah.
paragraph. Yeah. Yeah, it's not much.
But no, I meant is it like if the characters were saying that like in the
Oh, I
dialogue, I
see.
feel like it'd be
Oh, I'm with
weird
you.
if they
Okay.
spoon fed it. So like it's flying over my head, sure, but like I don't mind it so much. I think it's fine as it is rather than them just spoon feeding it to me unnecessarily and just like breaking immersion, because that's not what any of the characters would do as when they live in that world. They wouldn't just start going off about all the back story about all these gods and everything like that. So, um, but yeah, it's good. I am enjoying it, and I just love like the flavor of the world. I love the colors um and just how everything looks. I mean, obviously we've only been in one area. I imagine we'd probably go into a different biome or something like that, a different island. I don't know. Obviously, we're obviously just in one area right now,
Yeah.
and it's great. Like I think it's really good. And obviously something we haven't talked about as well is the game looks fucking fantastic, right? Like I think this is an insane looking game, um, which is not really what you tend to see out of Obsidian. Like this is by far like leagues and bounds their best looking game they've ever made. Not even
Comfortably.
close. Um, so yeah, that's quite like refreshing to see, and it looks really good. It tends to perform okay. The frame rate in cities is a bit garbage. I have to admit, like I'm
Yeah.
chugging quite a
On
lot.
performance mode. Yep.
Yeah, I'm in performance mode. Yeah, and I'm still chugging inside of cities and stuff like that. So that's a bit ass. But as soon as you get outside and you're exploring and stuff like that, it's locked at 60. So but yeah, no, it just looks really good. Yeah, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Um Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's because there's two things. Just before, because I want to talk about the graphics and performance a little bit as well. But
Mm,
before we move on, I just like final points on world building. Like, I am hoping that there's more there, um, that they feed into it. Like, there's loads of books and stuff. I think they've clearly gotten really excited with that and have just tried to be really careful about streamlining it, like you said, so that you're not just getting lore dumped all the time.
mm,
Because I don't feel like that's really happening in the dialogue. But there is so many books, and like I've stopped to read some of them sometimes because I think, as I say, there's some parts of this I think are really cool in quite a unique way. I think the game hasn't done. I mean, like I said, we're early on, but like the game hasn't done a good job so far in helping. I think most people understand what makes the god of this fantasy world different from gods of other fantasy worlds. Like Elder Scrolls has gods, and they've got different motivations, and there are some good ones and some bad ones. Um, that's kind of the case here as well, and I think it would be helpful for the game to really help people understand, like including me, because I'm no expert on the lore either. Like, what is it about these? Because there's 11 gods. They've said that.
mm,
What is it about that makes it interesting? I guess maybe that the gods have their own internal conflicts as well. Like Wodika was supposedly the head honcho. She was the queen, and she got killed. That's why she has different names, like the Burned Lady. And that's also why there's that cult following her, the Steel Garrote, who are like, because her um she was the god of like hierarchies and law and order and things like that. So they're like it's really caused a bit of a hyperfixation with that, especially in the living lands.
Mm.
So I think there's some I suppose what I'm trying to say is there's some scope for some really cool stories to be told there, and some of that comes through at times, like the idea of godlikes I think is really interesting. I'm meeting what was his name, Saragmis or whatever his name was,
Mm.
that was in the previews, but he was also a godlike of Eothas, and Eothas has his whole background as well. Like there were some really cool interactions there in helping us understand like what a godlike is, what is your connection to the god, like um
Yeah.
what does that mean, so I think that's all really cool stuff. I'm excited to see how that kind of unfolds through the game, but I'm definitely like my feet are in the water and I'm ready to get wet.
Mm. Quote it, clip it, ship it.
In terms of graphics, yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I think it's really good looking. Which I'm really happy that is like generally coming across as the consensus. The only thing, the main thing actually, I should say, that is wearing me down here is the shadows.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really bothering me actually. On performance mode on the Xbox Series X, that's all I can vouch for. The shadows are like mostly very grainy, and it's really distracting. Not just in an immersion sensing way, but there are sometimes I'm like looking over and I like can't make the outline of an enemy properly because it's like it's just so noisy. Um, I hope like clearly they've had to dial down the shadow quality to make the game work at 60 frames, but I hope there's something that they can do to just make that not
Mm.
because it's really bothering me. Um, I do also think at times it's hard to make outlines of things. I can't really describe it. I don't know if it's a color. I don't know if it's contrast maybe. I'm not sure. I'm finding it quite hard to describe, but sometimes I'm like I can see that there's someone there because there's a health bar, but actually I'm struggling to quite make out what that
I'm the
is.
same.
I
I'm
don't
the
know.
same. Yeah, yeah. I've experienced
Yeah.
the exact same thing, and I don't really know until I've actually engaged, and I'm like, oh, okay, it was a spider. It wasn't a human,
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you, and I think it is like a color and contrast thing because I think sometimes everything's just a little bit too bright, especially in the day. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just can't see like a pink fleshy little colored spider like in the distance. Sometimes I have to just identify it by its health bar and what it's called rather than what I can see.
Yes.
um yeah, no, I've totally felt that as well. Yeah.
It's not like a big deal or anything, and it's just like I do notice myself being like, What? I can't properly make out what that is."
Mm.
Um, so yeah, and I guess like they didn't want to outline enemies or anything because that would have been like there's already quite a lot of UI off actually. And I've turned some of it off. I've turned like combat like damage numbers off and things like that.
Mm.
Um, So yeah, that's anything I've noticed. And nighttime more than actually anything else does actually look amazing. Nighttime, like the color palette
Yeah.
there is so good at night. Like it looks great.
Yeah.
Um, and I am really glad that this is ultimately the direction they went in terms of like color, like because it makes it stand out. Like I'm looking
Mhm.
at this purple landscape and like these glowing mushrooms at nighttime. And I'm like, the closest thing we got to this is Nern Roots in 2011. You know what I mean? With
Yeah,
Skyrim. And
basically,
that was
yeah.
like still kind of brown, and Nern Roots I think we're just like a bit red, but this is like vibrant and purple and green, at least in this first area in Dawnshore. So
Mm.
agreed overall. It looks really nice surprise with how nice it looks. And some of
Mhm.
the effects look great as well. Like I've spoken about the frost axe I've got, but swinging that, it leaves behind these like trails of ice, like as I'm swinging it looks really nice. The spells look like
Mm.
really nice as well.
And even like the
And how
fire of the sword, it's not just like an orange blade or like it's
no,
actually got like a flickering flame on it, like moves and
yes,
stuff like that. It just looks good. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think if there's another area that we haven't covered. We haven't really spoken about like story, I suppose, but it's still kind of early days.
Yeah, we
I'm
both haven't.
intrigued, but
Yeah.
I don't really have much else to say because like not much has unfolded beyond this point. But I am intrigued.
Mm.
And there's not much else I can say without spoilers. So it's but the premise is very interesting. So we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah. It definitely is still filling that sort of Void, isn't it? The same sort of note, I guess. If you're kind of just chosen one, you don't really know why, and you you're awakened, and people want you, and you hear voices, or whatever. It's kind of like when you just fucking woke up and you're a Dragonborn. You know, it does give off similar vibes to that sort of thing. But yeah, it's interesting enough. I don't think it's gonna be groundbreaking in particular, but yeah, it's caught my interest. It's fine.
But it is interesting that you appear to be related to a god, but we don't know who the god is.
What?
Like, I
Yeah,
wonder.
yeah. That part has got a bit of mystery. Quite nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like that seems to be what the voice is and everything. And yeah, I do wonder because like the events at the end of Pillars of Eternity 2 were like universe shifting. Um, like, and because information travels quite slowly in Aora, like that, the consequences of what happened there haven't still been fully realized. And I like, so I don't think what I'm trying to say is I don't think the writers are scared of doing like really fucking the universe up. You know what I mean? Like, so
Mm.
that there's a 12th god, you know, like I do wonder if we could go in that direction. Um, but I'm hoping it doesn't. I don't know. I suppose I just want it to surprise me a bit because I am like I've got mushrooms on my face. The plague also causes mushrooms. I mean, I guess I'm linked to this somehow, but I hope it isn't boring. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I know what you
Um,
mean. Yeah. Um, and for whatever reason, there's an insane amount of bears. Have you noticed
there's a
that?
lot of bears. Yeah.
Like, why are people? Why are like bandit camps sleeping with bears? Have they tamed these bears? Is that a
I mean,
thing?
I saw that they said that in IGN, but like there is an ability for you to tame like a bear spirit in the ranger tree. So I don't
Maybe they
see.
have. Yeah.
I think that's
It just seems
feasible.
kind of weird to me a little bit. But like, I don't know. I think the enemy variety has been fine so far. Again, we're only 6 hours in, so maybe the enemy variety, maybe this is just it, and we're going to be just fighting like bandits, lizards, and bears, and mushroom versions of bears for the next
Yeah,
25 hours. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, so far it seems decent. Yeah.
Actually, that really just randomly reminded me if you've spoken to the guy in Paradise yet, who was getting like mugged. Have you spoken? Do you know what I'm talking about? He's like a vendor and he's getting mugged because something happened to me there of consequence that I'm pretty sure wouldn't have happened if I had done things
What,
differently.
the guy you talked to about the poison or something?
I think so, yeah. And he's got like
Yeah,
3 bandits near him.
and one looks like
Um,
Kai. It's like same
one looks like
race.
Kai and he's like red.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's
I've just done that.
Malin or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Well, how did that play out for you?
I killed him, and then this big the big looking guy who said don't cause trouble in my district
Yeah,
came over, and I fucking killed him too.
yeah, that's what happened to me. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
so scary.
he was
Like he
really
was like
tough
shaking, and I
actually.
was like, "Oh fuck!" He was tough. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It took a while. Um, but I thought that was quite cool. Like that could have clearly played out differently if we had just tried to be peaceful. We were like, "Nah, these guys have been dickheads. I'm gonna blow your head off."
yeah. I mean, it kind of escalated. I felt like I didn't really do anything that aggressive, and then suddenly their health bars just came up, and I was like, oh, okay,
They weren't happy about it. You weren't leaving them alone.
yeah.
Um, any other bases to cover them? I know. So I suppose there's 2 other things. One thing is the music, which I don't want to touch on briefly because they put up the score for Avowed. Um, you know, the original score, like the original soundtrack, a couple of days before early access went live, and I listened to it. So it's the same theme that's playing on the main menu when you open the game, and I was like, I quite like
It's
this.
pretty heated.
And then
I like it.
I listened to it more, and then I was like, there's not like a clear motif. Maybe I don't like it as clear as much as I thought I did. You know, in the same way that like Elder Scrolls, you know, you can recognize that from it. So
Yeah,
even Starfield, it's a what is it? Um,
I don't remember anything about Starfield's audio.
yeah, well, it has that like clear motif in all of its across its themes. there wasn't a clear one in this theme here, and I think that's okay. Because I think they wanted to make it a bit because it like speeds up and slows down and everything, like which I think is kind of meant to reflect the Living Lands a little bit. And there's like lots of drums, and violins. And actually, when I'm in the game and listening to the other soundtracks that are coming up, when I'm just like strolling in the ambience or doing the combat, it sounds really good. Actually, you know, it's giving me a little bit of Skyrim energy,
Mm.
which is great because what is the fucking Skyrim? What is the one that I always talk about? It's in my playlist. Hang on, I'm gonna have to find this so everybody knows what I'm
Maybe the
talking about.
motif, like you said, is unclear because it represents your character and you don't know
I think that's
who you
perfectly
are
understandable. Mhm.
and the god that you're tied to. So maybe that's what they were going for.
Now you're thinking with pause. Now you sound pretentious like me. You've been spending too much time with me.
I have. I mean, I don't have. I wouldn't have made any of those comments. I'm just going off the back of your comments. Literally, if someone just asked me how the music was, I would just say it was good. In most cases, unless it's like Final Fantasy.
Secunda!
They're kind of fire. Oh, yeah?
Secunda. Yeah.
Sounds like a slur. All right.
When you if you go to YouTube and play it now, will it come through on the podcast?
Yes, maybe.
If not, just for your own benefit. Secunda. Sekunda.
Oh, you actually want me to do it? Okay.
Do it. Yeah, I want you to do it. Because this part of the Skyrim soundtrack, and most of Skyrim's OS is goated, but Secunda, oh no, it's not K, it's Secunda, is like the ambient music that kicks in for a lot of the different parts of the game. And I hear that in my sleep, dude. Like I actually hear that in my sleep. It's my own dream scourge. You'll know it. You're gonna have it's gonna blow your mind, like light your mind up like a fucking like a crystal ball. Like you're about to have a nostalgia head explosion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, I know this. Yeah.
And just skip halfway in for me so you can hear it once it's picked up. How fucking good is that?
It is very good. Yeah.
It's so good.
It is very good.
And it's giving me some of that at times, which is like a big compliment. So I'm really happy with how that's kind of like panned out with some of the music as well. Because I especially think with fantasy games, like you want the music to stand out, you want it to feel magical and mythical and maybe even spiritual for something like Avowed, and I think it's feeling like that so far. So again, as we've said, like caveat to all of this, early days, and we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the game. But I think that's doing quite well. What was the last fucking thing? What was the last fucking thing? I've had too much Baileys.
Baileys at like 3 in the afternoon. I love it.
I'm off tomorrow. I'm off work. It was it was like the itemization. I think it was something that I was gonna.
Oh yeah,
So I know some people have brought up. Yeah, the UI is a bit, isn't it? Once you've gotten your head around it, it kind of is okay. But like, there are some times where I'm going on the menu and just instinctively pressing a button, and it's not doing the thing that I expect it to do. It's fine.
It's just a list.
Yeah.
Literally, your inventory is just a list. It's just an ascending and descending list.
Yeah, it's function, isn't it?
Like, it's fine, but it's a bit boring. It's a bit crap.
Yeah. Have you had any trouble coming up against a group of enemies above your level? Like, has that hit you yet? Have you?
No, not
you
really.
haven't gone against blue boys while you're a green boy.
Oh no, I have. Yeah.
You just manage it, okay?
Yeah. Like the guy that we killed when we got the flame dagger, he was blue for me, while I was green.
Okay.
And like he was tough.
Was it a tough fight?
Yeah, he was tough. I did die once, and I had to load and then go again, and then I kind of kicked his ass. But yeah, relatively tough. But I am playing on normal, so I don't think the disparity would be quite what you're seeing. And then other ones I found where they're like blue and they had 2 skulls in them, I ended up just crab walking away. I just didn't engage. I was like, "You're fucking mine." I was about to stab it when I saw the 2 skulls, and I was like, "You know what? It's fine. I'll let this one slide. Just walks off.
It's funny. um, Yeah, so because I'm playing on hard because it was recommended all over my feed that I play on hard. And to be fair, it has been really good at hard. Like I'm not just one shotting everything, and I have to use a bit of strategy, which does feel good. Like I would actually recommend you play on hard. Like I think you could just flick to it; it's no big deal. But I think it feels quite good for someone as cracked as you. You know.
Sure, man. Except when I'm playing on my living room TV and I can barely see what the fuck's going
Yeah,
on.
you can't see what's going on. Yeah. Fair enough. Maybe not then. But I did have a bit of trouble where it just started to get like a little bit frustrating because the game essentially has different areas that don't scale with you, which I like. Like, it's one of the things I didn't like about Skyrim, that like everything just scaled with you constantly. So everything was constantly your level. And I don't like that. I like the Soulsian approach of like, this is a fucking hard area. This area is for your level now. If you go to this area, you're going to die. You know, I liked that you just got to associate difficulty levels with different areas and you knew where to come back to or where to go for safety. And so there are some areas where there's 4 item quality levels, and if you're up against people who are a higher quality level than you are, the game will tell you there'll be skulls by their name, and also they'll have a color to indicate what level they are. If you don't have at least a weapon of that level, you do so much less damage. You do like minus 20% damage, and obviously, unless you have armor that's that level as well, you're going to get hit really hard. And I found myself in a position where I pretty much had to fight these 3 waves of skeletons, and I was like, man, it was tough. Like it took me a good 20 minutes to actually do it, and I had to use everything in my arsenal. And there are times, especially in these boss fights, where I have to use like my companion abilities. I have to rotate like in a pretty optimized way through my spells. I have to be landing power shot crits. I have to be eating like I'm going on my. I bet you haven't even used any of your foods yet. Like I'm going in
I
my
have.
menu and I'm eating my buffs. Okay, but I'm like eating my buffs to like make sure I'm getting, because otherwise I'm not getting through some of these fights. So it mostly feels really really good, but there are times where I can imagine some people would find that frustrating, and that was one time where I found that a little bit frustrating, especially because I didn't have the materials to upgrade. So like, what was I meant to do? You know, because I was stuck. Is what I was trying to say. Like I couldn't just run away. Like I had to fight these skeletons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was there. And then there was one other thing as well. I can't remember what it was. I've been slipping out my brain, Tim. Slipping through my fingers all the time.
Well, what have we talked about? We talked about gameplay, exploration. We talked about graphics. We talked about audio and music. We talked about I haven't really experienced any like bugs or anything. You said you had a couple, but I don't know if that was your talking point.
I had an audio bug. No, that wasn't it. It was something else to do with like progression or itemization, but I can't remember. Oh, that was it. Enemies don't respawn. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I actually quite like that. Yeah, I came back to
I
an
don't mind
area.
that at all.
I fast traveled back to an area and I saw the camp where I killed previously the lizards, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to kill these fucking lizards again." And I just saw they were all still a pile of ash from where I fireballed them earlier. And I was like, "Nice,
Sick,
yeah."
job
Like,
here, job done.
I was actually quite surprised because, like, I mean, even if it was like an empty camp, I would have been like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." But the fact that they were still a pile of ash, I was like, "Oh, that is cool." Like, I don't mind that at all. I think that's actually quite good, quite a good system.
Yeah, I think it's one of like it's not like it's a sexy decision, but it's one of the more interesting decisions that they've made. Like I'm not sure I can even think of a game that does that, especially like an open world game. Shit respawns all the time. It's like they're saying, okay, go to the next bit. Go to the next bit. You know, it's like that's
Yeah.
kind of what it feels like. And that feels, I think, quite good for people like me and you who are right now interested in exploring and moving to the next bit. But I think there will be types of people who like to backtrack, who like are expecting to be able to like farm and level up. But that's just not the thing here. Nope, you're going to the next area. That's where you're getting your XP. Nope, you're doing a side quest. That's where you're getting your next
Yeah,
XP.
and I like that because then you just get to experience the storytelling and like
And that's the
maybe more
frictionlessness.
equipment. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I
And I
agree.
think that will work for people like me and you, but for people who are going in with like particular expectations of what this should be, um, that's going to really, because I saw that came up as a big sticking point in some of the reviews. Some people were really like, it's crazy that nobody respawns. It makes the world feel really empty when I'm going back through areas um, that I've already been through. But I'm like, why are you going back through areas you've already been through? There's a million fast travel points. Fast
Yeah.
travel. Again, what the game is telling you, there's no point being here. You've cleared it out. Go
Hmm.
somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, you cleanse this area. Yeah. Yeah, and it does.
Right.
It gives that impression as well because you're there to sort of, clean up the living lands, aren't you? Whether it's from the fucking dream scourge or whatever, or whether it's just from like bandits or whatever, and you helping out the locals. Like you do feel like you're. There's that sense of you are like scrubbing the filth away a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
It's a really, really nice conversation, actually. Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought of it like that, but yeah, absolutely. And I think that's definitely like exemplified by the fact that the fog of war does clear like as you go around the map, isn't it? Like it literally is like you're scrubbing away the filth as you go around the
Mhm.
map.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, no, I didn't mind that at all. I think it's quite good, and I think it's just it's a good way to force people into doing like the side quests and the stories, and then a lot of those side quests give you the unique pieces of armor and weapons that you might have not normally found if you just sat
Yeah,
there killing the same pack of lizards and you'd be like, oh, I never got any loot. It's just like, well,
yeah,
it's because you were killing lizard men the whole time.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, I don't have an issue with it at all, and I actually like it. Like pleasantly surprised me as well. Like I quite liked it when I came across it. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. There's a nice leanness to it, I think.
yeah,
The fat has been chopped off
mm,
in that sense, which I think is quite nice for now. Again, we'll see how it unfolds over the time together, but I'm actually kind of okay with that. Like I'm okay with the game just shuffling me along to the next point of interest rather than allowing me to get lost fighting the same enemies over and over again, or encouraging even incentivizing me to fight this because I think I would. That's the thing. Like I think I probably would take extra detours to just fight that same pack again. Just to get a bit more XP to get the next skill point, but I
yeah,
guess they must have the XP and the progression dialed in fairly well, so that as I'm going through the game, I'm definitely getting the right amount of progression points, even if it does feel like a little bit slower at times. But I haven't done that
mm.
many main quests, and I suspect that's where you get
Oh yeah,
most of the
you
skill
get a
points.
good chunk. Yeah, I think when I finished one of the main quests or something like that, I got like 600 XP or
Yes.
something. Shot me up like three
Yes.
quarters of a level, like almost a full one. Um, so yeah, no, I don't really feel like there's too much of an issue with the whole leveling up and going through the world. I think it's quite nice.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll wrap up our thoughts of Avowed there, sort of with just a couple of closing thoughts. And I guess I think I think really the summarization for me really is that the game does feel frictionless. It does feel fun. Um, I'm waiting to see how things evolve. The only thing that I'm raising my one of the few things I'm raising my eyebrows at that I wasn't expecting to be raising my eyebrows at is the companion so far. I think Kai is really cool, but like I don't know who he is other than like a kind of funny, cool character. I don't know who you
Yeah,
are. Like, I
yeah,
don't know what you stand for. I don't know what you will like that I'm doing. I don't know what you won't like I'm doing. Um,
yeah.
honestly, I like Marius. That he's not doing anything for me at all.
I think he's
Um,
alright. I quite like
he's
him.
just he's just tracker. He's just tracker archetype. I don't know, like who doesn't like? He's like very skeptical of everything, because
He's
he's
a
very
typical dwarf. He's how pretty much like all like dwarfs are written, right?
yeah. Well, he's sort of a dwarf, but ranger. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
He's not doing much for me. So I'm
he's
hoping
fine.
as that unfolds, like I'll learn more about the companions and like what their perspectives are on things. Like Kai at the moment just feels like he's soundboarding the world back to me a little bit, which is helpful. Don't get me wrong, and he's great. Like he's doing a really good job with the delivery, the voice actor. But just in terms of like the writing of the character, it's not like I'm not, it's not bad. It's just that I want more of it.
Mm,
So we'll see. That's the only thing I'm like. Like, I thought I would have loved this character by now, but I just think they're fun. But they're not giving me any unique insight into who they are and what they stand for.
yeah.
Um, but other than that, like I said, having a really good time. um, I'm really, and I think that is best. Last night I was playing Tim, and like after you'd gone to bed, and I was like, I kept saying to myself, okay, last bit, and then I'll go to bed. And I did that about 5, 6 times, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm having a good time. This is a good game. And I was even like, when I went to bed, I was even like running through my head like different builds I could do.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that would be
Me too.
cool. Like, oh, what if I got those skills? Like, oh, that would be cool to do in combo with that. And oh, I could do that on my offhand as well. So and I think that is like a mark of a game just having a good hook on you. And I'm finding out that I'm really in that hook. I'm in that wheel right now. The wheel.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Closing thoughts for you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm having a great time with it. Whether or not that holds throughout the whole time, I don't know. But right now, I'm very fond of this. This is, in my opinion, the spiritual successor, and what we were looking for out of like a Bethesda RPG. In my opinion, Starfield did not do this for me at all. So this is what that is for me. Um, and giving me that sort of feeling I had way back when I was playing Skyrim or something like that. So I'm having a great time with it so far. I feel like the game is actually pretty underrated, and I feel like it's actually going to age pretty well. I feel like people are going to come back to this in a couple years time and actually feel like they were being a little bit too critical on it, and actually it's a lot better than they thought. Um, in my opinion, I think it's quite
Yeah.
underrated. So yeah, that's my
And that's
personal
a really
thoughts.
nice segue into like kind of where I want, as we leave our impressions of Avowed behind, I kind of wanted to move the conversation into more like, what was the consensus and like and Xbox and all of that. So I've got it in the thumbnail, but as of today, Avowed is on 82 Open Critic. It just went up from 81. Are 85% of critics recommend it currently. It's obviously still in early access, but I think all the critics that are going to play it will have done now. So maybe we'll get a couple more trickling into it. Might drop back down to 81, might stay 82, but it won't go any higher up. And on Steam, the game is currently sitting at very positive, 81% from 1,517 user reviews. Again, with the game going fully live on Tuesday, that may change. We'll see how the wider audience agrees. I suppose. Uh, so what you said at the end there, you feel like you feel like that score is a little bit harsh based on what you've played, or you feel like that feels about right? Like, why is that?
I feel
Yeah,
like it's a bit harsh, but not drastically. Like I feel like the game could be sitting at like an 84 or an 85 or something like that. I don't think it's like a high 80s kind of game, but I just feel like it's something that I feel like people were just overly critical of and were expecting like really quite a lot from it, and I feel like that will pass with time. And I think when people go back to it and play it again for a second playthrough, or remember this game exists in Games Pass or something like that, I feel like they'll look at it a bit more fondly than they have now. That's just my consensus. But yeah, no, I don't think it's particularly harsh, the reviews. Maybe a couple points here and there. Um, but yeah, I do think Obsidian have made something pretty special here. In my
and
opinion.
I sorry, this is maybe a conversation we should have had earlier, but we can just squeeze it in here just while we're talking about it. But I think what I've played so far really gets me excited about the idea of an Avowed 2.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Um, yeah, totally. And I guess we can also see how that might look in scope when Outer Worlds 2 comes out as well, because Outer Worlds 2 has potentially had that same injection, right? Where they're like, oh, the first one you did was, tight, smaller in budget, and we liked it. Now we're going to inject a lot more into it, make number two,
Yeah.
and yeah, that might very well happen with Avowed. I don't see why there won't be an Avowed too. Like
No.
it's the sort of game which I feel will sell very well. Like I do think a lot of people will download it and
I
play it
think.
because I just think this RPG just resonates with a lot of people, and I think because it will fling you back to the Skyrim days when people look at these screenshots, when people look at these
Yeah.
trailers and videos, and then I think when people pick it up and play it and they experience what we have, where it's quite easy to play, it flows really nicely, it's pick up and play, it's quite casual in that sense. I feel like it's gonna generally do pretty well.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think there's a really good point in there somewhere. Like, because I saw this while we're talking about reviews. I saw this come up in reviews quite a lot. That some people felt it was like really shallow for an Obsidian game, in it being an RPG. But I think like this is an action RPG. This
Mm.
is not a simulation RPG in the same way that like Starfield tries to
Yeah,
be
it's
or
not make
Skyrim
30
tries to be.
daggers to increase your
That
smithing.
Baldur's Gate tries to be. But even in the sense of like I saw people saying, "Oh, there's no police system. There's no law system." Like, and also you can't kill NPCs. There's none of this like simulation stuff
Mm.
going on where you can kill them and then the law's going to be like, "What are you doing?" and you're on the run. Like that isn't there because this is an action RPG. At times, Avowed even feels like a little bit arcadey, and I
Mm.
mean that in kind of a good way. Like, the RPG elements are still there, but it's not super deep.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we'll see how it pans out because there is like reactivity there. Like we've said things like, I've come across like multiple things of people like reacting to my choices
Mm.
and consequences, and that's great. That's there in the writing. Um, but I will say like reactivity in general is something which has been a bit unbalanced in this game. Like it's a bit wobbly in the sense of like in the writing it seems to be there. I'm surprised that my camp hasn't reacted to how I dealt with that side quest with the other god. Like, yeah, like I'm
Yeah.
going back to base camp, and nobody said anything to me. Like, they brought up a bit of an opinion about like what it would be like if I did that. Like, the impression I got was that I
Mm.
made the decision that they would dislike, but nobody said
Yeah.
anything to me yet. So we'll see. Like, I was kind of expecting that to come up immediately in the base cap, and Kai being like, "Yo,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Why would you play with fire like that?" That hasn't happened yet. There are other times where they have, and they have bounced back and forth with me about a decision I've made. Um, and then there's other things like, so I'm impressed that there is like a systemic element to the world and the combat, in an interactive sense. Like, you can electrocute water and that will do extra damage to people in the water. You can freeze water and you can jump on it as a platform. There's even a spell, Tim, where you cast, the one where you cast the ring of frost around you.
Mm-hmm. It's my favorite spell.
You can just run on water.
What?
You can run on water.
That's so cool. I use that spell all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's really cool. I love that.
And then they put like plants around the place, and you pick up trees, and you can treat them like grenades. Like you can pick them up and throw them, or you can just shoot them. I'm using a gun, so I can just shoot them. They will fall. They will explode. So there is like there's a reactive element to the combat and the gameplay in that sense as well. But then there's other things like in the world. There's occasional critters that are running around, and they'll run away from him. Like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice like extra element. And then I try and shoot one, and nothing happens. I'm
Mm.
like, I just can't kill this weird multicolored cow thing. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, why
Mm.
can I not? I feel like I should be able to do that for no other reason than the game just immersing me, like me loading a load of lead into this fucking giant cow.
Yeah, and pick up a
Um,
piece of raw meat. Like, is that really going to be so game
right.
breaking?
Like that, and that isn't
Yeah.
there. And then I go to, and I've seen this come up in some other people's reviews as well. And then I go to like some of the cities, and like there's not much happening in the cities. Like there's some I can hear like the hustle and bustle. There's people sitting around and talking. Usually if there are people talking loudly, it's usually in like trying to signpost you to something or it's a
Yeah.
side quest, which is fine. That feels fine. But there's people aren't like walking around. Like I saw a bit of sweeping going on. Like the occasional NPC will be walking around. Like, and I do agree that it does make the cities feel a bit like stale. Like so, it's
Mm.
weirdly. I guess reactive isn't the right word, but like there's a general bit of wobbliness in terms of like the reactivity and like dynamicism in the world. Like I'm a bit like I was expecting something to be happening there or some movement there or someone. I'm surprised nobody's reacted to me a bit more there.
Mm.
Um so that is like again, we'll see how it unfolds as the game goes through. But I was expecting a little bit more in that department. Yeah, to be honest, I was expecting a little bit more in that department. But yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
you've come up against that.
Yeah, no, I have a little bit. I mean, in some aspects, I quite like it. Like, I'm not the biggest fan on lore in games and stuff like that. Where every time you enter a city, a fucking guard pulls you over and he's like, "You're going to prison," or you pay this fee that is just insane, and or you fight us forever. Like, we will never stop coming for you. I don't like that much. I feel like that can be pretty annoying in my game sometimes. Like, I get why it's there, and sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I've been sort of pulled over again. Like, I don't need this in my life right now. Um, but yeah, I will agree with you. In certain aspects, I think the reactivity could be a little bit better. Whether or not, like, that's just a lot of that's maybe just in the main quests, which we haven't really done too much of yet. We've done a lot of side, a lot of exploration. So maybe these companion moments and these, um, yeah, these main character moments in the cities and stuff like that happen with the main story more so. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's just something we're going to have to sort of review as we play the game. But there are little bits of it. Like we were talking about that guy that came and fucked us up after we
Yep.
created that. Like every time you go into that district
Definitely
now,
there.
all of his
Yep.
guards they all hate you.
Yes, I saw
They
that.
all
Yep.
chase you and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
in that district, you're like a wanted person now and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there's elements of it, but I agree,
Yes.
it feels like half baked. Yeah, it feels like it's like it's kind of there, but it kind of isn't. They kind of just
Yeah.
shoehorned it in.
It's and that's the thing. It's definitely there. It's definitely there in places, and it's done well in those areas. Like it feels good, but then there's other areas where I'm like, why is that not there? So it's just, yeah, it just feels a bit uneven in that sense. For
Mm.
that in particular. But again, it's one of those things that maybe we're just yet to see how that kind of goes as the game progresses.
Yeah.
So, and I saw that come up a bit in some of the reviews. That's where we were going with this. So, and I think one of the really important things when I was looking at the reviews, like one of the trends that I saw emerging is that Avowed hardly got any 10 out of 10s. I think got one. There's been like over 100 reviews now. It got one single 10 out of 10. Um, and I think that is quite indicative of the game. Like I think that's probably quite fair. I think most people will play Valorant and be like, this isn't 10 out of 10 worthy, but it could be a strong 9. It could be a
Mm.
strong like 8.5 or an 8. And then obviously there are some really at the bottom of the barrel there. Like we got a couple of 6s come in. Because even like, throwing back to Starfield got like 40 10 out of 10s, and then but it had like 200 views in total. So then it also got a load of 7s as well.
Mm.
And then there's some people would give it like there were some 4s that came in towards the end there. But it's just like it's interesting how Avowed got a bit of a tighter review spread between the 7 and 9 range, whereas Starfield got a bigger review spread from like the 5 to the 10 range, you know.
Mm.
So I think that is more of a segue to the interesting question of, is Avowed controversial?
Uh,
Is that like the vibe you're getting from your YouTube feed, from comments you're seeing? Are you getting the is it a mixed opinion game with an 82 open critic? I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I mean, a lot of the YouTubers I tend to watch, like Matty Plays and Skill Up and all that sort of stuff, they have been weirdly not great, not very positive on it, which I find is a little bit strange. And I feel like maybe they were just expecting. I think they fall into that category where they were just expecting too much from it a little bit. They were expecting like the next Bethesda RPG, the next big one, the thing that Starfield couldn't do in terms of like even scope and stuff like that, when realistically it was never ever that. Like we knew the budget of this game, we knew the team making this game, and it was never going to be to that scale. But for some reason, I feel like they wanted it so bad to be that it kind of just spread a bit of negativity in their review overall. But yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I think generally it's more positive. I wouldn't say it's a mixed opinion game. I think overall it's quite positive. Like I've seen more people just saying, and their YouTube thumbnails just saying, Avowed's really fucking fun. I'm having a good time with Avowed, more than Avowed as a disappointment, Avowed as a letdown. So I wouldn't say it's a controversy. But I do think when
I think
you try and imitate some of people's childhood favorite games, I think naturally that will create a bit of controversy. you're trying to you're trying to bring back that nostalgia that can never quite be itched. So
this is a there's a big influence of expectation here, isn't there? And also, like, I think it's the state of like dialogue in games is just so wank. It's so wank. Like, an 82 game is not a controversial game.
no.
That is by consensus well reviewed. And I know, I suppose the other side of the coin, like I like really saying it through my teeth. The other side of the coin is that, of course, player consensus can be different to critic consensus, and that's kind of what happened with Starfield. The open critic for Starfield is an 85. You know, the player consensus is a lot less. You know, like if I'm going to go on Steam and have a look at it now, I think it's like 60% positive, whereas Avowed is 81 at the moment. We'll see how it goes. You know, is it possible when Avowed comes out that could slide down to a 60 as well? Maybe. I mean, there's going to be some fucking racists in there, you know, fucking getting their reviews in, and maybe I think Steam's quite good at filtering them out these days. But I just think like the consensus around how these narratives develop is just, I think, really detached from any sort of balanced conversation these days. It's just like everything is shit or everything's amazing. You know, if it's a 9 out of 10, it's amazing, no nuance. Or sorry, or even a 10 out of 10, no nuance. If it's anything less than that, a controversial dude. Everybody knows an 8.2 is a very controversial score. And that is just like, I fucking hate that. I fucking detest that. And I detest that, like, that because some big outlets have given Avowed either a middling or lukewarm review. You know, someone like Skill Up, you know, his review seems pretty middling to lukewarm. IGN gave a 7. IGN also gave Concord a 7.
The game is shut down in 2 weeks.
Yeah, some people will just see that, or they'll just see that someone gave it a 6 and be like, "Man, I heard that game was quite mixed, quite controversial." And it's like, no, some people thought it was okay, and most other people really liked it. And I really hate that that's how that goes. And that leads on to the next point, Tim, is if that is the case, what is Xbox's problem with releasing controversial games all the time?
I don't know. I don't think it's a problem they can help most of the time. I feel like it just comes naturally. I feel like there's a weird distaste in people's mouth when they're reviewing a an Xbox Studios game. I don't want to say.
Might even call it
Nah,
attacks.
I do feel like it is just an uphill battle sometimes. I feel like, and I'm not just saying this from like a biased standpoint because I am an Xbox owner and primarily play Xbox, but I do feel like even when you release a good game, if you're releasing it under the Xbox Studios umbrella, I feel like you've got a little bit of an uphill battle with reviewers. I don't know why, and I don't know if I'm just, I don't know. I just feel that way. Because because there have been a lot worse things that have come out of PlayStation that get reviewed a lot more generously. I mean, a perfect example of that is Concord and stuff like that. I know generally that only came from like IGN and Concord. I don't know what Concord's Open Critic was before it shut down. It was probably like mid-60s or something.
Let's
something
find
like
out.
Concord,
so 64.
64, yeah. So obviously it's leagues and bumps above that, but I do agree where I feel like a game really needs to just be a phenomenon these days to actually just be looked at positively overall.
Exactly.
And I feel like it's such a tall order. Like, not every game is going to have, like, because it's weird as well, because like when you look at a game like Black Myth or something like that, not many point difference between that and Avowed. But
it's the same. I was going to move right onto that.
Yeah. But because it just had this buzz about it, you won't find anyone saying a bad word about that game. Like, it was phenomenal. It was just groundbreaking in so many areas. And you look it up and it's just like, well, I actually got the same review score as Avowed. And Avowed's being considered a controversial game. So what? Like, what's going on here? There's like this weird, I don't know if it's just like the state of social media and just how reviews are done, but it's less about the number and like the buzz it can generate a lot these days.
exactly.
I don't know. It's kind of hard
Because
to explain,
because
but
straight up for real, because Xbox could feasibly they could release like 7 games that are in this sort of quality bar. And I've been saying for a while, Tim, on the podcast, Xbox have been doing a good job for a few years in keeping this quality bar quite at a good level now. That doesn't mean that every game is going to be a hit for everyone every time, obviously, but generally, apart from Redfall, the quality bar has been at like a good place now. We haven't had any Crackdown 3s, we haven't had any State of Decay 2 at launch, anything like that.
mhm.
Um, and we could have another whole year like South of Midnight comes out, it's an 82. Outer Worlds 2 comes out, it's also an 82. We could have a whole year of these games which get great scores, and then it will get to the end of the year. None of them will get nominated, none of them will win a game of the year or whatever. And the conversation around Xbox will still be they can't put out a good game. Like actually,
Yeah.
that is actually what happens. Like, and it's fucking nuts. It drives me absolutely insane. And I know it shouldn't bother me, but it just does because we all engage with the internet one way or the other. And it's just frustrating that this is something that seemingly is unavoidable. It's just the state of things. And like you say, I think you're right in part in that it is just the state of social media. But you have to start asking yourself at some point, like, how come every Xbox game that gets the same scores as everything else is being considered mixed? Is it because people are expectations are higher because it's a first party production? Or is it because Xbox actually puts out like a more like quite a diverse catalog of games in budget and scope
Mm.
compared to the other big three? Like Sony generally go for the AAA, very high production value. Switch generally does like not. I guess it becomes silly calling them AAAs or not, but generally the production value bar of Nintendo games are quite homogenous. Like they're quite similar. Like you
Mm.
you look at a game and you can be like, that's a game that's on the Switch. For Xbox, it could be really anything. You think about something like Avowed, through to Fable coming out this year, through to something like Pentiment that we had last year. Like it's really hard to pigeonhole the production value that goes into all of Xbox's first party productions. And I think
Mm.
that is problematic for them in terms of the conversation that gets churned out about their games. Um, because if the expectations are always really high, but they're putting out different levels of projects, like it's impossible to meet that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess at the end of the day, it just comes down to how well that's resonating with your audience. Because if your audience is still enjoying this diverse catalog of games and stuff like that, and you're still seeing these numbers go up and people are clicking on it, people are subscribing to Games Pass, I don't really think they care about the numbers and the game awards and all that kind of stuff. So, if they're happy
No,
with how their catalog is reaching the audience, and they're happy being the diverse publisher, that just do loads of different things, then, it kind of is what it
power to
is.
them.
And
Yeah.
let the games that look like movies just get the awards, I guess. Unless you're Hellblade 2. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird, but just FYI as well, we've been running for a little while. So if we did want to
Yeah, that's cool.
speed up the I mean I can go to like 4:15 or something like that, but yeah, we don't have long to wrap up like the state of play stuff if you still wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, no problem. I think maybe we just skip state of play and just sort of like wind down this conversation around about because I see we've got
Okay,
some comments in the
sure.
chat as well. But
Yeah, sure.
I think this is kind of the tone setter for 2025, right? In terms of what Xbox's games that they're putting out, and as we know, the expectation at this point is that they're really going to all come to other platforms. Like we just had
Mhm.
Indiana Jones, which I'm sure you also may notice that isn't counting for some reason as well, like because it missed the game, so it's not game of the year. Xbox actually still hasn't put out a good game, like they haven't put out a good game in 20 years. People will say.
Mhm.
Gears of War 3 was the last, like must have that they put out. And I just think it's like, as I say, coming back to like the score distribution of Avowed, it got 1 10 out of 10. For a game to really get 90 these days, you need to be getting mostly 10 out of 10s. You need like at least half of your scores have to be 10 out of 10s.
Yeah.
Like, what sort of games are most likely to get 10 out of 10s? Big budget, AAA, high production value, motion captured, hyper realistic, because that is the crowd who are doing most of these reviews.
Mhm.
Most people doing reviews are in their 40s, they're mature or maybe even older, um, are mature audiences who want good games that are pushing the tech, and enjoy. And don't get me wrong, that's not everyone. There's definitely some man babies out there, and I mean that in the most affectionate way possible, that really just love Mario every time. I mean that in an affectionate way.
Mm.
But most of that crowd just like want that really, graphically demanding stuff. They want the mocap, they want the high value, high production value cinematography. And so that is the game that's more likely to net you a 10 out of 10,
Mm.
because Avowed or anything under a AAA, it doesn't quite look as good, does it? So that can't be a 10 actually. It's only a 9. Can't
Yeah.
be a 9 actually. It's only an 8. It doesn't quite blow my socks off, Tim.
Mm.
I can't see the bead of sweat on my envoy's face.
True. But then that
And the
argument,
scope for that, obviously.
didn't really apply to Hellblade 2 either, did it? Where
No.
that pushed the tech, but that still didn't get your tens for all your 40-year-old reviewers and stuff like
No,
that.
but
So
Tim, there wasn't skill trees, Tim. There wasn't button combos.
was there different coloured loot?
There wasn't different colored loot, Tim.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's where they went wrong, Ninja Theory. Get it
Yeah,
in for the next game. Different colored loot.
you need multicolored loot, man. It's just you need it.
Man. So I think that's like probably my takeaway. If we're talking about Avowed, where it sits in the the pantheon of Xbox games for the second half of this gen, and when we're talking about like reputation and review scores, and how this is all going to shake out once the dust settles by the end of it, I think Xbox is going to come up against this problem where, because they're doing a variety of games, even though I hope that serves them well for Game Pass, certainly serves well for me. I'm fucking eating right now. I'm pleased as punch.
Mm.
But I think that is going to result in a lot of games that just cannot get 990 out of 100.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh no,
and
100%.
that is every time that is going to lead to people saying this of like, Xbox just can't get a win. They just can't get a win. I saw even like the Kind of Funny guys were saying that after Hellblade 2. I remember I saw them though. That, I think it was Greg was saying like, "Where's the win from Xbox? Where's the win?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? The game's like 80. It's like 82 on OpenCritic. It's the best looking game I've ever fucking seen. Like, what are we talking about? This is not a win. What are you on about? What do you want?" Bearing in
Mm.
mind that was like 3 months after Helldivers 2 came out, which was a big commercial success. Critically, it reviewed the same as Avowed. Like, it's so bizarre, like this split conversation we have about the games on different platforms, and
Yeah.
it really is. It's just somehow conveniently always Xbox's releases that like don't count as a win for some reason. It's such an irritating conversation to have, because it makes me sound like I'm like going crazy. It makes me sound like
Mm.
I'm like a conspiracy theorist. But like, I'm just looking at like how the topic comes up in videos and in comments and things like that, and that seems to be constantly the thing. It's like people are still waiting for this 96 Metacritic game from
Mm.
Xbox. Um, it's like as if that's going to change anything at this point. Like, they've got a subscription service which values diversity and high quality bar throughout. Like, the
Mm.
number between a 96 and an 88 is so meaningless. Like, it's
Yeah.
so meaningless.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It happens on the other end of the spectrum as well. I mean, people still will talk about Redfall and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
quite consistently. But then no one talks about I mean, I guess people would still talk about Concord, but weirdly, it has kind of dropped off. But like, or like all the other blunders that Sony have had with mediocre games, the Lego Horizon, the Foam Stars, all these games that just come out and just do fucking 60s or low 70s. They never see the light. Like, there's no attention brought to it, but then it's bought on the other end. It's bought on Xbox's end. There's something a little bit off. Yeah, I do have to admit. Coincidence? I don't know.
Well, it's like,
Happened too
and as
many
we've said before on
times.
the show, like, we're level-headed people for the most part. Sometimes I smack my table too hard and all my connections fall out
Yeah,
on my Mac. But that's neither here nor there.
yeah. We play games on
Like,
all
people,
platforms. Yeah, there are loads of
yeah,
Sony
exactly.
games I love. Yeah,
Most of the press prefer PlayStation and Nintendo. But it's okay. You're allowed to have preferences. But like, this whole like holier than thou of like, no, 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 no. Review outlets are transcendent. There is absolutely no way, there's no way possible that their preference for that platform, that they have all of their gamer score, all of their accessories, all of their favorite things are hooked up to their PlayStation 5. There's no way that that's possible, that that could influence review scores. Guys, they send reviewers free shit, lots of free shit, because they know that review scores are malleable. They know that if they get in your head and send you lots of fancy stuff, give you a free plane ticket, you're more likely to give a game a good score. Like it's like well-known science. So I don't know why people get so defensive about this. Like I'm not accusing you of being I'm not there's no secret cabal that's secretly review bombing people. I just think people have a preference, and I think at times that bleeds into review scores if we're talking about aggregates, because that's what an aggregate is. It captures everything. I bet if you ran some very powerful stat analysis, I bet you could probably make sense of it. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't account for much, but I reckon it is there somewhere, and I think that's totally fair to say. People prefer the stuff they prefer. This is not controversial, you know. And I would say that as well. I would say generally I'm more favorable to Xbox games. I try my best to be like have a neutral stance for our listeners and everything, but like I would openly admit that Xbox is my favorite platform, at the moment, and I have a history with it. It's okay. And no one's going to tell you off for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Forza Horizon 5 was the highest rated game of 2021, and it didn't get nominated. It didn't get nominated. What?
I knew I was going to come up. I ended the stream. It's done.
Did you really?
No, I didn't know.
Okay. Sorry, I think we'll probably call it quits there. We'll just quickly, what we are on 5 is. So I'll just quickly screen through some of the comments here. Greatness Awaits says the media is pro Sony. This isn't a PlayStation game. It loses 5 to 7 points because of that. So that's kind of what we're saying there. I'd give it 85 plus easy. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I reckon if I was going to put a number in it, I don't think it's really that much. But I think the more important thing is the way that the narrative emerges. It's more the conversation. That's the bit which really gets morphed. Anorexic says, I hate the phrase divisive reaction, as if most games also have varied responses. Yeah, exactly. I remember, infamously God of War Ragnarok, this people hold to a very high standard, got a 6 out of 10 from, I want to say it was a Korean outlet, and that, they got absolutely attacked for that. But yes, of course, there's always a spread of reviews. It's weird that even games that are 80 and above now, like I remember 5 years ago, we used to say 7 is a good game. Now we're at the point where we're saying 8 is a good game. It's so fucking bananas that we're having this conversation that an 82 is a divisive or controversial. Some people liked it. Some people loved it. Some people didn't love it. That's how it works. That's how it works. And Joaquin's just joined the chat and said, hey, ladies, back to this awful time. So, no, we're not usually going at this time. Usually we'll be sticking to our Thursday time slot at 6 p.m. British Standard Time. But we're wrapping up now. This has been a really fun conversation. I can't believe we filled nearly 2 hours. We actually did. We were joking at the beginning of the show that this wasn't going to happen. And we actually filled 2 hours talking about Avowed. I think that's probably a good sign, right?
I feel there's a lot to talk about Avowed. Yeah. Like for people who say it's a weirdly shallow game, I think that there's a lot to talk about. I don't think this game is nearly as shallow as people are saying it is. So,
well, it's fun more than anything, and I think that's really impressive. And I think the team have clearly took what they learned from Grounded, and how that game felt, and really applied that here. And it gets me quite excited about the artworks too, because some of this gameplay we saw before that looked like that had taken a big visual step up, and I hope I really hope that they smash it with that artworks too. So it gets me excited for more Obsidian goodness. Really, this is still a really great studio that does really great things, and it's great to see that they've got combat down now. Really good, because it's always been a bit basic, but this feels it's got layers to it, and it feels good and smooth. So Tim, any closing thoughts then as we wind down the episode in our kind of review impressions preview of Avowed, Xbox's first party game of 2025?
No, not really from me. I feel like I've said everything I need to say on Avowed. And yeah, I'm having a good time with it, and these opinions could change, as the game goes on. Like I've said with pretty much every statement I've made today, I'm having a good time with it, but I am very much still in the beginning phase of the game. You know, the game is probably 30 to 40 hours long. I've still got a while to go, but no, I'm having a good time with it. And yeah, that's it.
We can hear Luna meowing, by the way. I haven't wanted to say.
Yeah, she's been consistent. Like, she's just ridiculous. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with her. I stroke her and she's just constantly meowing. But yeah.
All right. Tim Joaquin says he likes your grandpa sweater.
Thanks, man. It's comfy. It's my stay at home and chill cardigan where I just whip it on, sit on the sofa. I love a cardigan. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that shit.
I like to put on a hoodie and, you know, mess up my hair. It's easy to take off if I'm too hot. You know, it's perfect.
He's really thought about this. Yeah, it's perfect. You play Valorant in that?
Yeah, I did last night. Yeah. And I fucking popped off last night as well. So. Yeah. And I popped off today. Yo, this is the Valorant cardigan.
I think it might be. Time to get some embroidery stitched on it.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Well, thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, consider subscribing. Consider swinging by next Thursday. As I said, we usually do our show Thursday in the evening, 6 p.m. GMT/BST. We'll probably talk more about Avowed next week and the rest, because you know we're gonna have a lot of good stuff to talk about. Lots of Xbox first-party content coming up. Game Pass, you know, is I guess the best part for us there. So yeah, if you've enjoyed listening, consider hanging around. You can find us on Twitter as well. Lots of love, and have a good rest of your Sunday.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.